Welcome to Elevate Your Energy, Elevate Your Life. My name is Joe Nunziata. I want to first just thank you so much for taking some time here to join me in this session. I'm really excited to have you here. And one of the things that people always tell me about my work, people who like my work, they always say, Joe, I love the fact that you get right into it and you kind of get through it. No fluff. You kind of jump right down and make it happen. So that's what we're going to do here today. I know your time is really valuable. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I give you a lot of value here in the shortest possible amount of time to make sure that you get things out of this session that you can actually start using and implementing in your life right away. So the first thing that I really want to focus on here today, and what's really important to me doing this work for many, many years, is that I want to give you changes that stick. And what I mean by that is, you know, over the years, we may have been through a lot of different things or motivational talks and things of that nature. That's great. I love those things. But as much as they're good and they're exciting and make us feel better for the moment, the question is, do we have changes? Do we come out of there with changes that really sticks, changes that stay with us that we can build upon? So that's really what we want to focus on today, because that's what I found to be the difference, and that's what made all the difference in my life. And that's really what I want to share today, is how we can make these changes in our lives that stick and then build upon those as we go forward. If you're interested, please feel free to share this with your friends. They can just go to freelifeschool.com, and if they go to freelifeschool.com, they can just, again, exactly as you did, put in their info and get the information for this session. Also, if you have any questions, you can send me an email. It's joe@joenunz, joe@joenunz.com. And I'm going to talk to you also a little bit later about a program that I have to help you go even further. So first, let me just quickly, for those of you, if you don't know me or my work or what I've done before, as I said, my name is Joe Nunziata. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. Grew up there. Kind of, again, when we were growing up there, it was kind of middle class, lower middle class. Now, of course, it's become very fancy. Well, at some points it has. Now, of course, with the world upside down, who knows what's happening. But I grew up over there, and you can see that's my picture when I was a young kid. And to the right of me is a picture of my dad. My dad was a New York City cop who became a narcotics detective, and he passed on the job when I was 12 years old. So when that happened, and for all of us, anybody who's had a traumatic or dramatic experience in their lives, it really changes who you are, changes the way you see the world, and again, makes our life very, very different. So what ended up happening for me, I was the oldest, of course, a boy in an Italian family in Brooklyn. You see my Brooklyn Bridge picture there as well. So I became super aggressive, felt like I had to help everybody out, went to work right after high school. And my mindset and my mentality was really what I would describe as pedal to the metal. It was like, go out there, work really hard. You want to succeed, just go out there and do it. And that's the key to success. And that's what I was focusing on. And that's what I did. So I went out, started work right after high school, bought a business when I was 19 years old. I was like, I was going to be an entrepreneur and take over the world. And long story short, by the time I was about 30, I ended up going through 2 bankruptcies, and I was really frustrated because I was doing all the stuff that I was learning. And even though I didn't go to school or didn't go to college, I was a voracious reader. I still am. I was learning all about mindset and being successful and setting goals and doing vision boards and doing all this stuff. And I'm doing all these different things, and I'm working really hard. I just was not getting to where I wanted to go. I did have moments, or I had times where things were better, but I could never sustain it. So finally, because I was just so frustrated and so overwhelmed, I just didn't know what to do. I finally decided, I said, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go to therapy. Somebody suggested you should go see a therapist. You've been through a lot. You've been through a trauma at a young age. Of course, this was not something we did at the Sunday dinner table in Brooklyn growing up, sitting around talking about our feelings and our emotions. Back at that time, therapy was not something we ever thought about. So I went in, and I kind of went in there with trepidation. I wasn't all excited about it. I said, all right, it was almost like I'll try anything at this point because, whatever, nothing else has worked. And I have to tell you, I went in there, and the first session, I became fascinated with human behavior and how your mind works and conscious and unconscious, and started to really learn a lot about behavior and what was going on. And it was very helpful. I started to read a lot of books that my therapist recommended. I also took some classes in psychology classes. So I was really kind of understanding how my mind was working. And things were getting better, but I was still kind of in the journey. And then I started getting more into metaphysical work, or energy work, as we would call it. And as I'm going through the journey, I end up meeting a very powerful, enlightened master teacher who said to me, so we get together and we're talking about all this stuff. Again, I had learned certain things by that time. And, she said to me, the problem you have, Joe, is you have blocked chakras. And I said, oh, my God, blocked chakras. What does that mean? I was kind of terrified by the whole idea. And she said, no. She said chakras, which then I learned, again, are energy points in your body that run from the base of your spine to the crown of your head. They develop from the time you are conceived until you're about 8 or 9 years old, depending on, every person's a little bit different. And basically she explained to me, you're holding energy in these chakras, and these chakras create your energy, and that's how you're going to move forward. I'm going to show you how to clear this energy and then go forward. Now, I had kind of known a little bit about these ideas, but really this put me over the top. So as I started learning this, I started to apply these principles to myself, and my life started to get much better. And then I started to help other people. That's kind of how I went forward. I started helping people then do this themselves, and I've helped thousands and thousands of people from all over the world do this and learn how to identify and clear this negative energy that you're holding inside this chakra system. So one of the things that was important as I was learning all this was realizing that everything is energy. And this, again, for me, was a very life-altering concept, because I was very much in the physical world. I was kind of, like I said, that bull in a china shop that point me in a direction and let me go forward, and I was a doer. So a lot of us are like that. Like, we learned that's what you want. You want to be successful, go out and get it, be a doer, make a list, whatever it is that you're doing. So this concept really started to change the way I saw the world and the way I was moving forward. So what I realized as I started doing this is that you're creating your life based on your feelings and beliefs, not necessarily what you do. So this, again, was something that turned me upside down and inside out, because I was always a believer in doing. So now I'm saying, it's not about what I'm doing as much as it's about what I believe and what I'm feeling. And believe me, I didn't know a feeling from a donut when I started out doing this, because I wasn't really connected to my emotions at all. I was more of a plow forward type. So this is something that really was revolutionary for me, was understanding that everything is energetic, and your feelings and beliefs are much more important than anything else you could imagine. Now, the other thing that's important for us to understand is this is not your fault, right? It's nobody's fault. Nobody did anything wrong. Nobody teaches us this, because most people don't know this. Most people, our parents, they tried to guide us in whatever way they could. Obviously, we all had different relationships and issues with our parents. It's part of life. But, most people, unless you learn this work, there's no way that you would think that, my beliefs and my feelings are the key to my life, not what I'm doing. And again, this brought a question that comes up a lot for me when I'm working with people, which is, so Joe, are you telling me I'm supposed to just sit around and not do anything? I'm supposed to just kind of sit around the house and wait for something to happen? And the answer is no. It's not about not doing anything, but it's about understanding the difference between just doing something because you want to not sit around, and doing something that's moving you forward. So what I like to look at it as is, I want to take what I call aligned action. So meaning, if I'm taking action, is the action I'm taking in alignment with where I want to go? Assuming you even know where you want to go. A lot of people, they're stuck in that space, right? Like I said, I work with so many people over the years, tens of thousands, and a lot of people are kind of like, well, I'm not really sure where I want to go. I'm kind of lost in that area. So that's also something to think about a little bit more, as far as saying to yourself, where is it that I really want to go here? What direction do I want to take? Where do I want my life to go? So again, we want to take action that is in alignment with the direction we want to go in and not just take action for action's sake. And a lot of people say, go out there, take massive action, do a million different things. And again, action, it's not that it's a bad thing, but if I'm not doing it with an understanding of why, or I'm not doing it with a feeling of, yes, this makes sense, this is moving me in the direction, then it's not helping me. It's not helping me go where I want to go. So we understand that our emotions and our beliefs have a lot of impact on us mentally and physically, right? We always think of mental, physical, and spiritual or emotional. And what we really want to understand is your emotional self is driving everything forward. It's not your mental self. It's not your physical self. Everything is being driven by that emotional part of you. So think about yourself when you feel stressed out or when you feel upset or when you feel disconnected. This impacts you mentally, it impacts your mind, and it also impacts your physical body, right? How many times we get stressed, we make ourselves sick, we lower our immune system, people get back pains, people get all kinds of different issues because they're not dealing with their emotions. They're trying to Band-Aid the physical issue or the mental issue or the stress issue, but you're not understanding where's it coming from. So we really have to go more into a cause and effect situation here where, hey, my life, whatever's happening in my life in the physical world is nothing more than a reflection of my inner self. So this to me was the key. So learning that became the missing piece of the puzzle, was to understand that I need to get to the cause. I need to get to the core of the issue, or I could never change it. Because what I had noticed, what had happened to me before was I was able to deal with certain pieces of this, and it helped me temporarily, but I couldn't sustain that energy. I couldn't sustain that success. I couldn't sustain the positivity because I never really got to the core of the issue. So that became kind of my mission. Say, okay, that's what it's about. It's kind of like you pull the weed out, right? You know you have to dig down in the ground, get the root, and pull it all the way out, or it keeps coming back. And this is what happens to us. If we don't have clarity, if we don't clear these blocks, what ends up happening is they just keep recycling back into your life. And that's what I learned as I was doing this on myself. Like I said, I was my first patient. So I was my first student was myself to learn how to do it and go through it. So what I had to do, and what you're going to learn to do here, is identify and clear your emotional blocks, and we're going to clear them at the core level, like I said. So, it's funny, if you see this image, I have the guy with the magnifying glass looking at his house, because basically the issues we have came from childhood and where we grew up and the way we dealt with our emotions in the household. So that's, of course, where all of these feelings and all these emotions and all these things are sitting. The problem is I don't know how to get there. The other issue is a lot of us have been conditioned to not go there. A lot of people I speak to, they're like, I don't want to go into those feelings. I don't want to deal with those feelings. I don't want to go back to the past. And I don't either, in the sense that I don't want you to go live in the past. But I do want you to understand that the energy you're holding on to, those emotional issues that you never brought to the surface and resolved, will be with you for the rest of your life if you don't deal with them. If you don't really work on how do I get these things going forward, how do I move these things to a different place. So if you don't do that and you don't get to these core issues at that level, you will always have this recycling of negative energy that we really want to get rid of. Now, I know a lot of people, they don't want to go there, or they try to avoid these feelings, but I'm telling you, it's going to be critical to get down there. So I kind of think of it like buried treasure, right? It's kind of like, you don't think of it as treasure because we're seeing it as, I don't want to go into this place where I have these old issues and think about what happened to me when I was a kid and all these old feelings. I don't want to go there. But it's really buried treasure, because what happens is once I go down and dig it out and get rid of it, it changes your whole energy. It changes your physical makeup, your emotional makeup, your metaphysical makeup. It changes everything. So let's see this. Instead of seeing it as, I don't want to go there and deal with these emotions and feelings, let's see it as, hey, this is the key. I'm going to dig this out, get rid of it once and for all, and then be able to move my life forward in a positive way. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to give you some basics to get started and give you some things you can start doing right away. Immediately, the minute you're done here, you'll be able to use these things I'll show you to start working on elevating and clearing things out. So the first thing we want to do is we really want to elevate awareness. So what I mean by that is most people live their lives like in a tunnel vision. They just kind of go from point A to point B. You know, we get up, we go to work, we take care of kids, whatever we're doing, right? We paid our bills, whatever. So that's kind of how we function. And we function in this very narrow alleyway, so to speak, where we're not really looking at the big picture of what's going on. And as a result, because we stay stuck in that energy and we stay stuck in that space, we don't ever deal with anything other than what's right in front of us. And when this happens, we end up getting triggered a lot. So the first thing we want to do is we want to stop getting triggered. So what's happening is every time you get triggered, it was funny, there was a guy who wrote a book many years ago, one of my favorites actually, was a guy named John Bradshaw. He actually was the guy that in the early 90s really wrote about the inner child and was talking about the pain that we're carrying and the suffering that we're carrying. And he would talk about this idea of getting triggered as he called it a spontaneous age regression, where what's happening is something's happening to me now as an adult, but it's triggering something, again, that I talked about earlier, that I never resolved. And because it's triggering that thing that I never resolved, what's happening is it keeps coming up over and over again. And what usually happens, because we just stay stuck in a cycle, is we go into an old default. So what happens is we either react to something. Some people are very reactionary, right? Something happens to them. They may yell, they may scream, they may get emotional, whatever it is that they do. That's one thing. Other people take action, right? They may do a certain action. They may go into some kind of activity that they use to deal with their stress or their anger. Or we have certain behaviors that we have that could be tied to addictions, could be tied to a lot of negative things that we do. Maybe we say, oh, when I get upset, I get triggered, I go drink, I go eat, I go do drugs. Some people shop. I had a woman I worked with years ago. When she got upset, she would clean. She had the cleanest house in the world because she was always getting triggered and she was always upset, and she would just go start cleaning her house. So what we want to learn to do is we have to stop doing that. We have to be aware and say, oh, I'm getting triggered emotionally here. I want to understand what's going on so I could stop this cycle. And because every time we repeat the cycle, it gets stronger. It kind of stays with us. And then we keep just kind of going through the same thing. And that's why people say, wow, you know, why can't I get a break? Why don't things go better? Why don't I meet a nice person? Why can't I lose the weight? All of these things are tied to your emotion and unresolved feelings. For me, I kept saying, why do I keep struggling? No matter how hard I work, I'm struggling. I can't go forward. And I realized that I kept myself in that space because I had emotional issues that I did not resolve. And once I did, things started to change. And all of a sudden, my career got better, and money started coming in, and everything got easier, which is an important part of what we want. We want our lives to be easier at the end of the day. So that's where we want to go. So again, don't forget, we want to stop getting triggered. We want to stop for a minute and not go into our old default routine, which is going to keep you stuck. So what I want to do is I want to give you, like I said, I always do, every session I do, I make sure that you walk away with something that you can use immediately to improve the quality of your life. So I want to give you some basics to get started here. I'm going to give you 3 steps to get started. So the first one is kind of what I talked about, right? I want you to stop before you react. So something happens. So I'm going to give you an example. Like you could be at work. It doesn't matter what's going on. I had somebody I was working with, and she was working as an executive assistant, and she would say, I went into the conference room, and the boss made a negative comment towards her. So she said, so I said to her, so I said, what happened? What did you do? And she said, well, and she went into a behavior that's also very common. And she said, well, he's under a lot of pressure and he's under a lot of stress. So basically what she did was she justified his behavior instead of dealing with the feeling, dealing with what she was really feeling. And she said, it's funny because I've had this type of boss my whole career as we started doing the work. And she said, I've also had this type of relationship where the men always made me feel like I was doing something wrong and I wasn't a good person and I was inadequate. These were all the things that started coming up. So what we're able to do then is I want to identify your feeling. So I said, what is your feeling? What is the feeling that you have? And she said, oh, I feel like I'm so unworthy and incompetent. So that was the feeling that she was holding on to. So think about it. What happens in your chakra system and your energy field, if I'm holding energy of feeling unworthy and I'm no good, what ends up happening is I keep sending that energy out and bringing that into my life. That's the whole premise of law of attraction. So but she did this her whole life. We're doing these things our whole life. We're not even aware of it until you really start doing some work and understanding yourself at a higher level. So now, once I know what the feeling is, what I want to do is I want to allow myself, I want you to allow yourself to feel that feeling. So she had to feel the pain of that emotion that she never dealt with. So by her justifying it and saying, oh, he's under a lot of pressure, and as we talked, she would tell me the same thing about everybody she ever encountered. Oh, this boyfriend was this, or he had a lot of struggles when he was young, or this person did this, instead of saying, I need to deal with how I feel about it. So it's about allowing yourself to feel that emotion. So once you do that, every time you feel your emotion, what ends up happening is you actually release the energy. Now, I want to give you a little caveat here because this is an important part of the work. The energy is very deep. It's that buried treasure, right, that we talked about. You may have to go through this multiple times in order to get the energy out. So you may not get it out for just one time feeling it. You may have to dig down a little deeper. I show people how to do that, and I'll talk to you about that in a few minutes. But this is something that the first phase is just at least saying, hey, I'm aware of this. I don't want to go into this old behavior, and I want to allow myself to feel that emotion so I could start getting rid of it and getting it out of my system. So what happens is you start changing those old feelings and beliefs. You start cleaning up. So you're cleaning up your emotional self, but that's also cleaning up your mind, because these things are all interconnected, right? Your mind is connected to your feelings, as is your body, right? Your body reacts, like I said earlier, as does your mind. So as you start clearing things out, your energy begins to shift and you start to elevate. So in the world of energy, it's vibrational. So there's a scientific element here. So what ends up happening is in the world of energy and vibration, I start to vibrate at a higher level. Now, I don't say this as I'm better than you, I'm worse than you. It's just different. So at a different frequency, I start to change the energy I'm sending out, and you start attracting and creating better results. So now what's happening is because you've made the internal shift, you start to change the external world. This is one of the keys here, is that nothing external will change, certainly not in the long term, if you have not dealt with the feeling at a level. I will tell you right now, I've seen it over and over again where people have said to me, oh, okay, I understand it now, I'm good. And inevitably, they'd end up back to square one. I had this with a relationship. I was working with a guy, and he was having issues with his relationship. I explained to him what was going on. We had this conversation. I showed him some processes. In his head, he said, okay, now I got it. I understand it, and I'm good. And I said, no, you're not good because you haven't actually – all you did was identify it. You haven't dealt with the emotion. But that he was very headstrong. He went out. 6 months later, he was divorced. And I said, because you didn't deal with it. And he called me up. He said, what happened? I said, well, I told you, you didn't deal with the feeling. You just brought – it's almost like saying just because you know it doesn't mean you have resolved it. And that is a very important piece of our process here. Knowing it is great. It's also a trap. A lot of people say, oh, I know what it is. I'm good. I'll control it. That is a very bad road to go down because you will not be able to deal with it going forward. So that is going to be critical as far as moving yourself to the next level. So like I said, this was just kind of giving you some basics to get you started. So what do you do now? What is the next step? Now what? So for me, like anything else, I need to know how to get from point A to point B. I don't just want to be floundering around here trying to get through this whole world and get through these emotions and feelings. I need a process to get from the beginning to the end. So really what you want to learn how to do is master the process. It's mastering this process that I've been using for almost 30 years with people to help them clear energy. And it takes time, like anything worthwhile. You know, when you learn something new, it takes time to really master it. And I will tell you this, it takes time to master it, and then you keep working on it to just keep yourself at the level that you want to be at. Even though I've been doing this for many years, I still work on my energy every day because it's like exercise. I want to be in good physical, mental, and emotional health, where I work on all three because I want to keep myself really in good shape. So I want to talk to you about my new Elevate Your Energy, Elevate Your Life program that you can do from home to work on all these things and also get the process of empowering yourself to now go out and create the life you desire. And the key here is this. This is not just to use like, hey, I learned this, that's great. This is something you will be able to use for the rest of your life. So what you're going to discover here is this. We're going to talk about how to identify unconscious issues very quickly. So the idea is, how do I identify what's happening when I have these episodes or something happens, or like the woman I told you what happened in her office. Then we're going to go through how to break destructive patterns of behavior. We're going to go through exactly how to clear that out, and then how to attract positive people and the opportunities that you want. Another thing that I find really critical is making quick adjustments during the day. Because a lot of people say, oh, I got up on the wrong side of the bed, or, oh, this wasn't a good day for me. But you can actually identify your energy and issues right away and make those quick adjustments and turn that whole day right around. And then we want to understand how your energy system is working, because it's kind of like I need working knowledge of how this works so I can make these adjustments. You also have karma that's part of this. You have your karma is tied into your emotional map, and it's important that you understand that those things are tied together. So these are all the things that we're going to work on in the program. But most important is you're going to get this powerful energy clearing process, my process that I've been using. You will be able to use this process for the rest of your life, just as I do, and just as so many people I've worked with do. I get emails, texts all the time from people saying, wow, I'm still using this process. People I met 20 years ago. Someone just called me. They're moving to a whole different part of the country and said, I knew my life was in disarray. I had to do some clearing. I realized it was time for me. I used those processes. I'm really excited. I have a new chapter starting. And these are people, like I said, that I met and worked with years and years ago. And as I've progressed, I've continued to add to this program to make it even more powerful because, again, I've added as I've moved along the process here. So there are 9 modules in the program. There are 2 videos, 2 webinars, plus 5 audio sessions that you're going to get instant access to the whole program. So you're going to get the entire thing right away. You'll be able to get started. And again, you'll see there's an introductory video. I want you to watch that first because that'll kind of give you the foundation of how to get forward. So I've been blessed in my life to work with a lot of people and also get testimonials from some great people. So this one, Joe Vitale, who you probably know, was in The Secret. He wrote Attractor Factor, many other books. And he stumbled upon my work at one point, and he really loved it. And he said, this is the only program I've ever seen that seamlessly combines spiritual laws and practical life principles. Joe is not about techniques. He shows you how to make internal changes that will impact your outside world. This is a great program for people who are seeking lasting changes. And that's the thing I think that's most important. These are lasting changes, not one-timers. And Stacy Francis from New York, she owns Francis Financial. And when I first met her, she was just kind of getting started, and she had a couple of issues that were just slowing her down. And now, she basically said, from my first conversation with Joe, my practice started to change. It was as if my attraction level was raised just by talking to him. I'm attracting more of my ideal clients now. And more than that, I'm getting more and more clear on how to market myself even more. Joe armed me with the emotional support and technical tools necessary to identify my goals and make them a reality. I'm creating a totally new company that is much more focused, effective, and productive. Thank you, Joe. And one of the things with Stacy was she was having a lot of issues really putting herself out there. Today, she's been on MSNBC. She writes for the Wall Street Journal. She's been on TV all the time. And she started a nonprofit, which was one of her goals. So I was really excited. And I met Stacy a while back, but she's done amazing things. But she goes back and she always tells me, it was those blocks that I had. Super intelligent, super qualified person. She said it was those blocks that if I didn't deal with them, I would have never been able to create what I've created. So the other thing, as I said earlier, we've got the 2 video sessions, the 2 webinars, the 5 audios that include the energy clearing meditations. You're going to see this in a couple of different formats, which is important because I know everybody learns a little bit differently. Plus, I'm going to give you a special bonus, which is my Karma Buster program and book. And the reason I want to give you this as a bonus is because this program is tied into this because there is karmic energy. There will be some karma discussion in the Elevate Your Energy, Elevate Your Life program, but this will give you even more to really understand and identify the karmic issues that may also be in there because we all have them. We all have some karma that we brought in. So that'll help put it all together. So this program, like I said, puts it all together. It's practical application. It's emotional clearing. It's tools you could use for the rest of your life. Plus, again, understanding things at a much deeper level so you can go forward. So I want to give you this whole thing. You're going to get the whole program. You're going to get all the bonuses. You're going to get the Karma Buster program, and you're going to get it instantly. So take a look. There's a lot more testimonials and information on the site. So I want you to go to elevateyourenergynow.com. So it's elevateyourenergynow.com. You can click this slide. It will take you right there. Now, I already have a super discounted price on this, but I want to thank you for going through this whole process with me and listening to this presentation. So I'm going to give you an additional $100 off. Use the code ENERGY when you go there. Of course, I would use the code ENERGY, right? Of course, to use as my code. So again, elevateyourenergynow.com. Use the code ENERGY. It'll take $100 off the full program or the first payment of the payment plan. There's a payment plan option. I wanted to make this accessible for everybody so you could really get all the info and get out there and make it happen. So I want to thank you so much for being with me here, and I hope that you found this to be useful, and I hope these are things that you can start using right away in your life to make those changes that you deserve. So listen, go out there. Again, once you have a process in place that you can use like this, it will change your life in ways you can't even imagine. So I want to thank you once again so much. May you be blessed and again, love yourself. That's always going to be the key to success.